Sonic Frontiers, more like Sonic Fun Tears. And the average watch time of this video will be 1 second thanks to that. But if you want to stick around, I have a lot to say about this game. Sonic Frontiers is a game that I had next to no faith in. Call me a pessimist, but I call it understandable at this point. As we got closer to release, things began to look better and better until I finally had it in my hands, and it didn't matter what IGN or some random pirates on Twitter thought about the game, because when I play a game, my opinion is the one that matters to me. And that's how it should be for you too. Hearing my opinion in this video, or hearing your friend's opinion after they played the game, shouldn't affect how you enjoy something, but there's nothing wrong with a little debate here and there about what you liked versus they didn't. And that's precisely the reason why that in all the videos on this channel, I'm not afraid to look y'all in the eye and tell you what I was thinking when I was playing those games. I was never trying to rewrite your opinions, I was always just telling it as it was. This is how I experienced it, and if you experienced it a different way and got more enjoyment, I'm really happy for you. And of course, I was also looking to get a laugh. So when I say Sonic Frontiers is the most special gaming experience I've had in years, not just in terms of Sonic either, counting everything, that seems like a big deal for me to write down and then also say in this recording. Not a single game in recent memory has brought me to the verge of tears and to the edge of my seat so effectively and frequently as this game has. And this is your last warning. This is going to be a full spoiler review of Sonic Frontiers, and everything is fair game. I'm not leaving anything out, no skipping to a timestamp. You're just done with the video right here, I'm sorry. Go watch maybe the anti-spoiler video I put out before, maybe the modding tutorial, and I don't know, maybe if you want to see me play this game live and see stream highlights, you can check out my streaming channel and my gaming channel. And now I'm going to spoil everything, so you have been warned, and it's probably best to start where we left off. In my spoiler-free video, I said I'd finished the entire first island 100%, and it took me around 4 hours. Looking back at my footage, a majority of that is gameplay, but the story happens as frequently or as infrequently as you want it, you having the option to go out of your way to progress it. Throughout the rest of the islands, with the exception of the fourth, this is how the game works, and it never gets boring traversing these landscapes and finding all the goodies dropped into the map like a giant Sonic-themed Easter egg hunt. The puzzles also don't get stale, which is a huge plus in my opinion. I figured there were going to be a lot of repeats of the same ideas, and while there are a good amount of repeats, I'm pretty sure each new island introduces new gimmicks and puzzles, so things don't really get stale. Plus, this game is all about doing everything at once. You know, you could be running around the stage looking for new cyberspace stages, or you could be looking for bosses to fight, or you could be looking for characters to talk to, or you could be looking for puzzles to unlock more of the map. And it never gets boring because you can go back and forth between these things whenever you want. Nothing is telling you when or where to do something. For instance, every island also includes its own boss fights called Guardians. They're much bigger robots that either travel around the map or sit waiting for Sonic to run by. We have this gigantic guy here, and this was a character that they showed off before the game came out, and I was incorrectly thinking, you know, maybe there's gonna be like 3 or 4 variants of these things throughout the entire game. But no, every island has their own set of Guardian fights, and only a few of them are brought back, usually stronger than ever. Knowing this game was going to have combat also made me nervous, because I figured it was going to get real, like, button mashy, like the Werehog, but instead, the boss fights here range from really, really fun to, gosh, I wish I wasn't here right now. And I guess this was the best place to talk about the bosses, because I don't have a whole lot more to say about the gameplay than I did in the spoiler-free review. It's all pretty much the same gameplay loop the whole way through. But you know, why is Sonic even on the Starfall Islands to begin with? Well, my friend, that is quite simple, because you see, Eggman is once again scheming and messing with powers that he has absolutely no hope of controlling, but hey, 6 times the charm, right? Surprise, surprise, something goes wrong, you get sucked into a weird portal, and then we flash over to Sonic and friends who are traveling to these new islands, because Tails picked up the signal of the Chaos Emeralds all traveling to this place. And that seems a little strange, since usually they just shoot to, like, you know, opposite corners of the Earth or whatever. So him, Sonic, and Amy are traveling to this new location to try and figure out what's going on, but they didn't anticipate the islands they're traveling to be so aggressive. The 3 are shot out of the sky, as they have been so many times before, and they all crash down not onto the islands below, but into the cyberspace that they house. Elsewhere, Knuckles, in the Knuckles prologue, does some investigating on Angel Island, discovers a strange chamber in Sky Sanctuary he's never seen before, and is promptly scooped up by the plot and dropped into cyberspace as well. Sonic wakes up in cyberspace, but it looks like Green Hill. That's so weird. It must be his memories or something? Yeah, that explains it. But yeah, anyway, Sonic does his thing, runs around a little bit, and escapes cyberspace, landing him on Kronos Island, one of the Starfall Islands that they were intending to reach in the first place. Feeling extremely disoriented, this is where Sonic first hears a voice in his head telling him that he has conquered cyberspace and is the key to shattering the barrier between dimensions. And accepting this as the only way to find and rescue his friends, it's time yet again for Sonic to do some running. After some tutorials, Sonic's combing of the islands leads him to find a familiar face, that being Amy Rose, who is trapped in some weird red prison. And here's where you start to see changes, because without considering the consequences to himself or making any stupid jokes, Sonic releases Amy and seemingly takes some damage in the process, and I want you to remember this for later, this is important. Upon being released, Amy is stuck in this very strange digital form, but she's fine. I mean, she's kind of like stuck in limbo, so depending on who you ask, she's a lot less fine than she could be, but she's fine. And now this is where the game opens up, so you can run around to go wherever you want, collecting Amy's memory tokens, which you need to stabilize her so you can keep talking to her, or you can go find portal gears, do cyberspace, find Cocos, fight bosses, level up enemies in speed and power. Do whatever you want, man. The world is your Sonic oyster. In the past, if you told me the entire first chunk of this game was dedicated to talking to Amy Rose over and over, I think I would have still bought the game and played it anyway because I'm a sheep like that, but I wouldn't have been happy about it. I don't hate Amy, I really don't, but she has not been the best handled character over the years. But unlike others who were good and then got much worse, Amy seems to be steadily changing over from being a love-obsessed burden to be around to a character with more skills and emotional strength, but they're not quite there yet. To throw some praise at a completely dead franchise, I think Boom Amy has actually been the best this character has ever been represented so far. She feels like her own person instead of just being that girl that likes Sonic. And in things like Forces and IDW, they made it a point to bring out this level-headedness that we've never seen from her before. She works closely with Knuckles during the Resistance, and then takes over for him once they're focused on restoration and Knuckles has to get back to Angel Island. She feels like a genuinely invested person in bettering the world in IDW, to the point where she is running herself into the ground trying to help everyone until she realizes that helping people is definitely a good thing to do, but you shouldn't burn yourself out or else you won't be able to help anybody. She learns that she can always rely on the people around her, and being a leader-type character at this point even makes her have more in common with Sonic, as in her own way, she steps up to help in ways that Sonic can't. Cause, you know, he would never be the one to sit at a desk and slowly direct an entire task force on what to do, because that man is the task force. In Sonic Frontiers, I was happy to see Amy is still hanging on to some of that character she's found in Boom and IDW, but since it's just her and Sonic in all their scenes, something just feels weird. I think it stems from the fact that Amy is trying to help this Coco they find on the island, like to an obsessive degree, and Sonic is trying to help Amy. But that leads to Sonic helping the Coco and Amy just kind of being there to like sideline things because she can't do anything to help anyone right now. That, of course, being a very important thing to her, it gets her anxious, upset about the situation, but she's also really wanting to be rescued because she's in an unpleasant spot herself. She ends up feeling really inconsistent here with her treatment of the entire situation and Sonic as a whole, and I guess to get my point across better here, I think I should throw a few of my Sonic thoughts in here so we're not just talking solely about Amy. Sonic is completely different than he was in the past several entries. He's not making a joke every line like he's expecting a laugh track that never comes.
No copyright law in the universe is going to stop me!
But he's still funny because of how he plays off of the other characters. And he still gets to tell jokes that poke fun at things because that's how he deals with this huge stressful situation. My friends are in a really bad spot, I want to do everything I can to help them, and that includes trying to lighten the mood a little bit because he knows they're under a crazy amount of stress, and I assume him making jokes every so often is probably better than showing that he is also incredibly stressed. This is like a very real thing to do. This is like a very me thing to do. I identify with this a lot. Like, I mean, I'm not saving people from mortal danger, but like, if some bad stuff's going on, a little joke here and there is not a bad thing, as long as it's not like, Baldy McNose hair, copyright, you know, like meme stuff. Like, meme stuff in a stressful situation like this not appropriate. The kind of jokes and humor we see here are very appropriate for the situation, because it still feels like he's taking things seriously, but trying to help in his own way too. Sonic feels confident, powerful, he feels like a beacon of hope for everyone in the story, he inspires every person he interacts with to become a better version of themselves, and watching him do his thing in this game has me smiling ear to ear, because this is Sonic. He's finally back after all this time, and he is so cool. Back to Amy, so when she starts, like, fighting with Sonic over trying to help this Coco rather than Sonic trying to save her as soon as possible, I don't know if they were going for, like, she's being obsessive over helping and trying to do everything she can, but isn't able to, so it's getting in the way of everything, so she starts throwing more aggression Sonic's way because of that, or I don't know, like, I'm not really 100% sure what they were trying to go for here. It just feels very strange that all of a sudden she would be like, Sonic, you really try and abandon someone who's in need? Which he's not really trying to do. It's just that, like, Amy is in, like, real mortal danger, and as far as we know, this Coco is just missing their partner. It feels like there's, like, a hierarchy to how dangerous these situations are, right? Of course, I'm sure Amy probably feels like a massive amount of empathy having this Coco look for their lost love, knowing that, you know, she is in love with Sonic, and that is not reciprocated. She kind of wants this Coco to have a better time than she is, I guess. I don't know. It's important to her that this happens, therefore Sonic keeps doing it because he knows she's in danger, but he also wants to keep her safe and happy, and he's a good guy like that. I'd like to point out, too, that Sonic doesn't even really get mad when Amy freaks out. He kind of just, like, calmly tells her his perspective, which I like a lot as well, because I think it'd be very easy in this scene to be like, well, what do you mean? This is a weird moving rock, and Tails is still missing, and what the heck's going on here? I respect this Sonic, that's what I'm trying to say. All in all, with Amy, I think they could have showcased her character a little bit differently here if the goal is to build towards the definitive version of her, but this is just the first game with Ian Flynn fixing everything, so I'm down to see where this goes. Oh, and if it feels weird that I relied on a lot of IDW stuff to try and characterize Amy here, it makes a lot more sense than you think, because
I'm a tangle with love climbing around these ruins.
Yep, IDW is canon now, boys. We won. I feel like I could make an entire separate video about how good that is for the games to have a connection with auxiliary material when they've been written incredibly well for years now, but we can talk about that another time. I mean, the possibilities are literally endless. We can explore more of the IDW universe in game form, maybe have a Metal Virus game that plays like Frontiers with extra playable characters. Oh my gosh, like, even Styx is canon now. Like, at the end of the game, we're jumping forward a lot here. Amy goes, I wonder if Cream and Styx are around for a road trip. Like, are you serious? We're going to take everything that's been squandered and we're going to put it directly into the games where they've always belonged, and oh my god, I'm so excited. I don't even have words for this. I know we're like 13 minutes into the video, but I already have to say thank you for everything in this game so far. This is such a massive step up from literally anything we've ever had, and I'm dying to know what's gonna happen next. Speaking of happening next, in this game specifically, that would be Sage and the first Titan. All over this island, in addition to Amy, Sonic finds this strange character named Sage, who keeps telling him that he's an enemy and he doesn't deserve to know anything because his actions are pointless. Gee, what a ray of sunshine. Again, Sonic doesn't get mad though. He thinks Sage might be trapped just like his friends, and he offers to help her. You also see Sonic trying to crack that tough act she's putting on with his humor and general likability, but Sage is a program, so Sonic takes what little information he can gain and proceeds to try several times again and again to small talk with a character that he doesn't know and might be part of the reason that his friends are being held hostage. It's really amazing to see characters in this series that are not just one trait and then a million jokes. This is just a real character thing. Like, he just wants to help people because that's what he does. Small talk and little scenes between the characters pop up a lot in this game, and not every scene is used to progress the plot. Sometimes it's just Sonic going, hey, what's up? And Sage basically saying nothing, and then Sonic making a funny observation, and then getting back to the gameplay. It might seem weird after the last several games to see casual interactions, but this is what we've been missing in this series. A story is not just a straight line from point A to point B. A story has characters with relationships and histories, and exploring as much of those things as possible can elevate a story into something that feels real, as opposed to it being a random script a couple people are reading together in their basement. More on Sage later though, believe me, there's a lot. Before Sonic comes face to face with the first Titan, him and Amy experience something wild. While helping that Coco from earlier, they get pulled into this strange vision where they see the two Coco reunite, but hey, they look like someone we know. Yeah, this reveal, this is the thing I mentioned in the previous video. I wish I had a face cam recording because, like, I probably looked like Wile E. Coyote. My jaw was on the floor. Alright, Sonic Frontiers, you already had my attention, but now you've got it locked inside a safe that only you know the code to, and on the very first island too. Bravo. And if you were wondering, my jaw didn't move from the floor because after you find 6 emeralds, holy shit, dude, Giganto hits the scene, and as funny as that name is, we saw earlier, this guy is not to be messed with. Like, I really love that they established that this thing could eliminate Sonic in an instant, and he's really lucky to be alive after the first time he met this thing. That, of course, makes Sonic's Shadow of the Colossusing of this character and subsequent theft of the Chaos Emerald feel super suspenseful, and when our boy finally finds that golden glow we all know and love, you find a similar smirk on your face that Sonic has, because both of you know that this is about to be something incredibly special. Thinking back to the first time I played this has me feeling chills, and honestly, just writing this down and now saying it to the recording, I feel it again. Like, it's just so exciting and cool that I can't help myself. Giganto acts like a final boss from any other Sonic game you can think of. Sonic's rings drain slowly, which encourages you to increase your ring capacity, and all his moves have been enhanced with these crazy after images and grandiose size. Wailing on this giant creep literally feels so cathartic after having it looming over you since its introduction, and while the combat can be a little bit button mashy, it feels really good. It's not mindless werehog shit. This is an effective story moment showing how resourceful and strong Sonic is while trying to protect his friends, and playing it puts that in your hands because you care about helping them too. And because of how crazy effective this entire first island experience was for me, that's why I figured I could make the spoiler-free review by just finishing the first island. I knew that I was gonna love this game more than any Sonic game I've loved in such a long time. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, or explode after a golden hedgehog eviscerates your chest cavity. Briefly seeing a confusing vision featuring another one of those chaos creatures, Sonic drops down to the ground and admires the conclusion of a hard-fought battle. Unfortunately though, destroying just one Titan does not save Amy from her digital prison, which means Sonic is off to the second island at the behest of that mysterious voice that seemingly only Sonic can hear. I'm sure that's not suspicious at all, don't worry about it. Our next destination is Ares Island, or as I started calling it, Bloom Island, because there is so much visual bloom here that I had to turn the setting way down because I just couldn't see anything. If you were thinking Bloom is your biggest foe, however, that is not the case, because Sage is back and she's brought a new friend, the second Titan, Wyvern. This thing almost makes mincemeat out of Sonic just like the first, and having lost the emeralds upon arrival, we're back to exploring cyberspace to get them back. And would you look at that? It's Knuckles! I know that guy, he's a huge idiot. Just kidding, that's incredibly false. He's not a huge idiot, he's actually really cool and smart and complicated because he sorta wants to be like everyone else but can't because he's burdened with watching over the last remnants of his entire species, which would weigh on anybody's mind. Forgive the guy if he flies off the handle a little too quickly or doesn't understand a reference here and there, like he's got a lot on his plate, and I can't even begin to find the words to tell you how much I hate what they did to Knuckles over the last several years. He went from Sonic's confident rival who could absolutely back up his smack talk, punching the Chaos Emeralds directly out of Super Sonic, to the mayor of Stupid Town, and that's it. Like, they even ditched the Master Emerald. He would just be there in Lost World talking to Sonic on FaceTime without a care in the world. I'm not saying Idiot Knuckles wasn't funny. I really loved him in Boom, but dude, Knuckles is so cool. It's a waste for him to be an idiot sidekick comic relief character. Immediately when Sonic finds Knuckles, he's got this grin on his face, like he's already thinking about how he's gonna poke fun at him for needing to be rescued. The big, strong Knuckles the Echidna, totally helpless. And this is where I find the biggest difference between the meta-era Sonic and this new Sonic we have now. You see, meta Sonic in this situation would have cracked a one-liner, possibly funny, possibly not, and I believe he would have done this with or without the knowledge of how to save Knuckles. This new Sonic we have here already knows how to save Knuckles from this prison, and this snide little grin he has says so much more than any words he could have possibly uttered here. Just from this one smirk, I get the feeling that these are two people who know each other so well that Sonic is probably imagining what excuse Knuckles is gonna have for this. And in his head, that is so funny, and it's funny, and he can show that because he knows Knuckles isn't in danger because he already knows how to save him. Whereas if this was in like a meta Sonic game, Sonic would have been like, "Wow, Knucklehead, way to get yourself captured again," and then as soon as he lets him out of the cage, Knuckles would fall on the ground and his eyes would spin around and he'd have like birds above his head like a cartoon. Which again, can be funny, but also shut up. Stop it, shut up. Once Sonic frees his rival, they don't waste any time in exchanging some very lighthearted banter, and Knuckles is actually concerned for Sonic because he sees that this cyber cage does yet more damage to him. But as always, Sonic does not care about what's happening to him, he is more worried about helping his friends, and Knuckles immediately steps up at that point to help find the emeralds since it's kind of his responsibility. What we get for Knuckles in this game is the kind of stuff that I never thought we were going to see again, and the stuff I've always wanted in these games. We really get into his headspace and perspective on everything. We've known for a very long time that he's the last Echidna, and seeing the remnants of these ancients makes him think about his own people. When the Coco need help with their battle, Knuckles is there with Sonic in tow because he knows what it feels like to lose everything, and he doesn't want that for anyone else. This whole game has this very somber feeling to it. We get to explore these characters more than we ever have before, but it's gonna hurt. We also get to see the cooler side of Knuckles, where Sage shows up and tries to attack Sonic, but Knuckles valiantly jumps in the way to try and protect him, and it works, and this also shows Sage that even though Sonic and Knuckles don't see eye to eye, they're still friends who can make it through anything by working together. I love this scene where Knuckles has a flashback to the events of Sonic 3 and they just show a screenshot from the game in all its pixelated glory. Like, it feels super out of place in something like Kingdom Hearts 3 does when it like flashes back to PS2 models. It's a very charming little thing, albeit a little bit weird. And aside from that, strengthening the continuity, all of the stuff we're seeing on the Starfall Islands seems to be a little bit too tied to the Chaos Emeralds in those past adventures. And this is the island where Knuckles and Sonic start to pick up on that. The duo starts to learn a little bit more about the Coco as well and how they're tied to these ancients, being the living recordings of their memories, and surprisingly, they're more tied to the emeralds than even the two of them are, being the guardian and frequent user of their power. And now I have to tell you about the Knuckles sections that almost had me in tears. Like, after Knuckles successfully leads the Ares Coco to their battleground and watches them get decimated in a flashback, Sonic and him are then found by some cyber creatures that threaten more Coco and ruins nearby, and not being willing to lose this fight but unable to do anything, Knuckles looks so distressed. But Sonic steps in for him and shows him that he can rely on him, just like he has all of those times before. And when Knuckles is immediately calmed down by this and thanks Sonic for his help, it's just this really nice feeling, because you know these guys have been through so much together, and you're finally seeing it pay off in a way that makes sense. And this is probably my favorite scene in the entire game, but after this event, Knuckles perches himself on top of some ruins, lost in thought, and Sonic, being the little shit he is, looks like he's about to say something snarky. But seeing how dejected his friend looks in that moment, Sonic shuts his mouth. Like, dear Lord, I never thought I'd see the day where he willingly doesn't say something stupid. Sonic just sits there in this beautiful scene where he listens to Knuckles talk about all the things that are bothering him and how he feels like maybe guarding the Master Emerald isn't the best thing for him, but he feels like he needs to. And Sonic is just there as a supportive friend and even convinces Knuckles to maybe take a vacation. Which is crazy, because the old Knuckles, before Idiot, wouldn't have done that. And the Idiot Knuckles didn't need to take a vacation, because he was always on a vacation. This is huge. It also reminds me a little bit of when Blaze shows up to talk to Knuckles in the IDW Sonic Annual for 2022, where Blaze is like, "I'm the guardian of these emeralds and it's so stressful, I don't know what to do," and Knuckles says, "You should take a vacation and hang out here with us." And Blaze goes, "Yeah, that's a great idea, thanks bro." These characters still feel like Sonic and Knuckles. This isn't some forced friendship moment. This is one of the most believable moments I've ever seen in a Sonic game. Because we've all been here in both places. Not about cataclysms destroying your entire family, obviously, I hope. But seeing how strong this friendship is after all this time they've known each other really makes it feel like they're a team and they could do anything. They would go to any length to save each other and anybody else who needs them. And Sage is there to see all this stuff, and she starts to doubt her simulations just a little bit as a result. After finding the 6th emerald again, Sonic and Knuckles head out to face Wyvern. Sonic climbs up a big tower, hitches a ride on public transportation, Wyvern infringes on Starlight Carnival's copyrighted material, and finally Sonic ascends to demigodhood yet again. This is my favorite boss, and my favorite boss design. The song pops off an insane amount, and the mechanics are challenging and fun, and also I've been playing the game wrong this entire time, thinking you need to time the parry like in Breath of the Wild, so I beat this boss on like double hard mode. Yeah, you can just hold the buttons down and you'll auto-parry things. I don't really like that very much, but, you know, you could time it, I guess. Sonic flies in this huge set path in a circle following the Wyvern until he either catches up to it or parries a rocket back, zooming forwards in the confusion. Using the parry, Sonic reflects Wyvern's strike, leaving it open to attack, and oh my god, he's so cool! Like, they made him so cool again in this game. He's not a joke anymore, guys. I'm so happy to see how cool this is. With Wyvern, nothing but dust in the wind and one Titan left on the horizon, Knuckles does as any sane person would and confirms that Super Knuckles is canon, which reassures Sonic for the future. Okay, but in actuality, what really happens is Sonic is worried that he hasn't found Tails yet, showing vulnerability, ironically in a state where he is literally invulnerable, which I think, if it was, like, a coincidental thing for them to put this here, I like that, but if that was intentional, it is a really good way to use ultimate power and vulnerability at the same time. Knuckles, returning the favor from earlier, gives his friend a very quick pep talk, which snaps the hero out of his funk, and he sets off to be blasted out of the sky a second time on Chaos Island. I'm pretty sure this is meant to hammer in how effective the Ancient's weapons are, able to home in on him at supersonic speeds and zap him out of God mode in one shot. But I like to think that it's Sonic having really bad peripheral vision like me and just not seeing the lasers coming in time. Not gonna mince words here, Chaos Island is probably the worst one of all of them, not in terms of story stuff, but in terms of gameplay. You know how 2D sections have been like a massive plague on this franchise ever since Generations? Well, every single platforming challenge on Chaos Island exists in 2D, or practically all of them, and I really don't know why. It's incredibly annoying to be traveling the island, home in on a spring instead of an enemy by mistake, and then hit 3 boost pads and fly down a rail, landing 8 Tuesdays away from where I wanted to be with no option to break out. Not every 2D section here traps you into a thing and forces you to go all the way to the end of it. Sometimes you are able to jump out early, but it's just really annoying if you've got like a flow going and then, oops, sorry, gotta do this real slow shit where I'm wall jumping and trying to get past this area so I can keep moving in the 3rd dimension. After a while of trying to navigate this place, I actually started weaving around all the stage elements because I was sick and tired of it, and the rest of the island kind of rubbed me the wrong way too. It's just designed in a very confusing and frustrating way to navigate your first time through. I don't know if it has to do with all of the fog everywhere and the fact that there are like 3 miniature islands you can travel to using rails that only appear after a little while and like solving puzzles. That's part of the game, I know, but it's very frustrating to see an objective way far in the distance and then get stopped because you know you can't get over that crevice. The biggest problem with this island is the flow. Everything else seems like it's fine. The bosses are cool, albeit a little bit frustrating. Tails is a very nice addition here, and I'm going to get into that in a second, and we get more of Sage, of course, which is always a welcome thing. But yeah, the pop-in is probably at its worst here, because the render distance is so low, and I know I didn't mention that in the spoiler-free video, but that is a massive problem with this game. There would frequently be times where I was trying to get to a new location, planning my route out with the stuff I'm seeing ahead of me, and then all of a sudden my entire plan has to change, because suddenly, there's all the stuff that I couldn't see 2 seconds ago. I guess it'll be easier than I thought, which, you know, is fine, I guess, but it's just bleh. Gripes aside with this one, there's a lot of good here too. When I wasn't lost and sad, I was found and happy, especially because they fixed Tails and he's great again. I'm so happy I can say that. There are jokes we've made on this channel that span back like 6 years about how I think meta-era Tails is the biggest disappointment like ever. But he's back, and they fixed him in the most astonishing way possible that made my brain expand when I figured it out. Earlier I said having just Sonic and Amy together was sort of a detriment to how they were trying to portray Amy, but Tails is the exact opposite. The fact that he is side by side with his closest friend and brother figure in this game really helps bring out the character that we've been missing for a long time. Part of Tails' arc is that he's helping out this little Coco, as you tend to do on these islands, and through seeing this little nerd Coco struggle, Tails starts to come apart at the seams. This Coco is waiting for their hero to come along and help them accomplish what they're trying to do, which brings back a lot of memories for Tails and starts making him feel very bad about himself. Tails drops some really heartbreaking lines asking if he's a burden and feeling like he's been really inconsistent as a person because he used to be so brave, referencing the events of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, but he's also been a useless coward as recently as something like Forces. He's not sure if he's grown at all or if he just got lucky back then, and he feels like he'll never be who he's meant to be because he's always going to be in Sonic's shadow waiting for him to save him. And it's with that heartbreaking realization that I understand now what this game and its story are trying to do. This is a soft reboot, obviously including new elements like IDW canon, characters, and sticks, but we're not ignoring the years of jokey meme games. Those are a central part of these characters now, and it's affecting Tails in a worse way than the rest of them. Now, this is either going to sound really stupid or really profound, but in real life, people change over time. Sometimes for the better or for the worse, but people change and are constantly changing throughout their entire lives. And I think what Ian Flynn is going for here is everything all the way back to Sonic 1 is canon to this series, and it's been an actual length of time since they've had those initial adventures. But surely that doesn't make sense, right? Because that would mean the characters are a lot older than their canon ages that we know. But that also lines up with Sega removing the ages of the characters from their bios on their website. I think the idea now is that these eras we've seen, classic, adventure, modern meta, and now what we have with Frontiers, have all been sections of these characters' lives, and we've seen them both grow and regress in characteristics. We've seen them have their character traits replaced with other things, like Knuckles being stoic turned to being an idiot, Eggman once was super competent but now he's more of a joke, or he used to be, Amy went from a raving fangirl to a personalityless friend, and Sonic turned from a cool hero to a huge dope. You can say I'm overthinking this, but this game goes out of its way to reference as much of their past adventures as possible. Sometimes it almost comes off like they're doing product placement. Yeah, this situation is pretty dire, and that power that destroyed the Ancients is pretty dangerous, but was it as dangerous as Dark Gaia TM from Sonic Unleashed? I don't know, I guess we'll find out. There would be no reason to hammer in all of these references if they weren't trying to solidify how we see these games as a continuous narrative where every single bit matters. This direction is not something I expected, that's for sure. If I was in charge of it, I absolutely would have pretended that a lot of the games never happened, but it takes a really good writer with a lot of patience to work with the garbage from the past rather than just throw it out. So, major props there. So Tails' character being called into question here is something that I love, and it shows that he's going to get better again, vowing to go out on his own for a while after this to really find himself, not relying on Sonic or the others because he can believe in himself finally, and it helps to know that his friends do too. The other benefit here is that Sage starts to become even more curious about Sonic and friends, seeing him save everybody and overcome her supposed impossible odds several times already. Sonic shows kindness to everyone and doesn't let anything stop him, even the cyber corruption that gets so bad when rescuing Tails that Sage is shocked he's even able to keep moving. She still doesn't trust that Sonic will be able to win against these odds that she's deemed impossible by looking at all this data, but she's starting to rethink it a little bit. I think it's time to just talk about Sage, because I've been trying to work in snippets here and there, but she deserves her own section. Sage, this mysterious little digital being that Sonic keeps seeing all around the Starfall Islands, is Eggman's latest AI invention. She's almost like a Navi program from Mega Man Battle Network, except even more close to being alive. In the intro cutscene, when Eggman is sucked into cyberspace, Sage is able to interface with it, learning of the destructive force that the Ancients faced. Following orders, she looks for a way to remove Eggman from cyberspace, only to find through tons of conversations with Sonic and about Sonic, she begins to change her mind past the impossible odds that she's seen in her head. This very advanced AI begins to refer to Eggman as her father rather than her creator, and watching this new character begin to understand what it means to be alive and to trust and care for people, I think they've just written one of my favorite new Sonic characters in a really long time. At first, it was surprising to me how Eggman begins to see Sage as a daughter, but I had to remind myself that this isn't just game Eggman anymore. This is the wonderfully complex comic Eggman too. And that guy really cares about his creations. Looking at his audio logs on the creation of Sage and his observations of the situation, he ends up calling her his daughter and praises her brilliance, saying she's a chip off the old block. There is so much characterization for Eggman here, and you might not even see it since it's tucked away in the fishing minigame. I don't really want to spoil every single one of these logs for you, but make sure to go fishing, and when you visit the Fishopedia to see more, check out those Eggman memos, please. Like, just a quick spoiler for this, Eggman mentions Dodonpa from Team Sonic Racing, the Babylonians from Sonic Riders, the Black Arms from Shadow, like, literally everything is canon. Team Sonic Racing? Yeah, you know that game played for 5 days before Crash Team Racing came out? Yeah, looking forward to more Dodonpa, I guess. Sage is just a bewildering character to experience in this game after so many years of just the goofy hooba-dooba Sonic, you know, like where nothing mattered at all and there was not really any heart going into anything. Sage is just this really tragic character because she was created by the evil doctor, but then learns about heroism and never giving up and overcoming impossible odds through watching Sonic and talking with him all this time. And who would have thought, I guess, that the best way to flesh out your character that you've just put into this game for the first time is to actually have them appear a ton of times throughout the game. And, like, you can choose to go talk to her whenever you want. It's complete side content. But that's up to you. If you want to know more about Sage, it's up to you to figure it out, and you to form an opinion about that. And, you know, when you compare her to someone like Infinite, who I have to say everyone was kind of, like, worried about when this game was, you know, being showed off, because she is like a black and red new foe, sort of like Infinite just was in the previous game. Like, Infinite, he shows up in a couple cutscenes, but he doesn't do anything. Like, he is just a big wimp that cries about getting kicked in the face once. And then, once the game is reaching its end, he's gone forever. Goodbye. We never see him again, nobody mentions him, nobody cares, and I still don't care. This is how you write a new character. Because she's not an antagonist, she's not a protagonist, she is somewhere in the middle, and I think that is the most interesting thing we've had in a really long time. But with that Sage development out of the way, the third Titan, Knight, is made up to be this huge deal. Because this is the last Titan, guys. You know, there's definitely not a fourth secret Titan on one of the 2 more islands we're about to visit. But Sonic thinks this is it because Sage said there were 3, and Sonic listens to people now, so you gotta love that. I think this one is my least favorite of the Titans aside from its design. Like, the design is sick. It's got like a giant gun sword thing, huge buzzsaw shield. Are you kidding me? This is anime as hell. The battle kind of devolves into slamming the shield back into him until Sonic gets a hold of the sword and just chops it in half and it slowly slides apart because Sonic is the coolest man in the universe. Oh my god. I really hope I'm not spoiling this game for you. I really hope you've played this and you just wanted to hear my opinions because, like, this game is something else. Like, I really hope that every one of you who watches this got to go into this game completely blind. With all 3 Titans destroyed, Sonic thinks his friends will be released, but they aren't. Seems like that weird voice in his head keeps moving the goal pole. But rest assured, this is it. 6 towers sprout up on Rhea Island, so that's Sonic's next stop. Instead of playing cyberspace stages and opening Chaos Emerald vaults, you'll just be climbing to the top of each of the towers, which are very tall, and if you fall off of them, yeah, it's about a 5-day trek to get back up, but it feels like it was your fault for falling, so yeah, don't fall. As Sonic's deactivating the towers, he sees visions of the Ancients. He sees them preparing the Chaos Emeralds for some unseen enemy. He sees them escaping a planet right as it's destroyed behind them. And most importantly, he sees where the Ancients end up going after their home is destroyed. It's a little planet that you might have heard of called Earth, which means the Chaos Emeralds are from some other alien land, and that's not even the craziest part, because the Chaos Emeralds draw them to the Earth because the Master Emerald already exists there. I have so many questions about this now. Like, why does Chaos look like one of the Ancients? Did they make him and put him in there to protect people from using the power of the Master Emerald? Like, I thought Chaos was a mutated Chao, so where does that leave the Chao at this point? Are they from space too? Chao in space? Why is the Master Emerald the Master Emerald? Why is it able to negate the power of the emeralds from an entirely different planet? And what about all the freaks we have on this planet? Sonic, Knuckles, and Shadow, why are they all so in tune with the Chaos Emeralds if they're alien in nature? I mean, Shadow is part alien technically, so maybe the Black Arms have something to do with this too, since Shadow is all about chaos powers? What does any of this mean? Like, I need to know. These flashbacks end with all of the Titans that we've seen going up against this, like, insurmountable power that's trying to destroy them, and with no other option, the person piloting this fourth Titan we've never seen before decides to lock this energy inside their Titan and then trap themselves in cyberspace, knowing that that means they will die, but at least the rest of the Ancients will be okay until they aren't and they're gone anyway. This power that they trap in cyberspace is the thing that Surge has been fearing all along, the thing that Sage says Sonic will never be able to face, and that's because she knows, as he's been fighting his way through cyberspace and saving his friends and destroying Titans, he has been taking on all this corruption, and he's reaching his breaking point. And this is what Sage has been prophesizing all along. She's known that Sonic is not going to be able to escape this corruption, and therefore, once he finally succumbs to it, she's gotten to the point where she bids him farewell as a hero and doesn't think any of this is fair at all because he has done so much good for everybody around him, and she feels that if he could just work with Dr. Eggman, her mission to keep him safe would be a shoo-in. But that's fate for you, there's just no way to beat it. Except there is a way to beat it. You see, Sonic here, he's not looking too good, and I'd like to point back at my Sonic is gonna die in Frontiers theory. I think I was actually pretty close. I'm kind of impressed that I pulled all that out of my ass. At this point, Sonic is completely out of commission, and Eggman shows up to laugh at him, even though, like, he's probably gonna die now, which is kind of ballsy, but I respect it. This is where Knuckles, Amy, and Tails show up to help Sonic because, you know, he's been helping them the whole time and they don't want him to look like a missing Source Engine texture anymore. So, in an absolutely amazing show of character, these three surround Sonic, hold hands, say a couple nice words, and then Sonic is completely fine and there are no repercussions from this whatsoever and we can continue with the game. Now, you might have heard a tone shift in my voice, and that's because this sucks, like a lot. They've been building up this cyber corruption since the very first moment you save one of your friends. So it's been, like, maybe, I'm gonna say, like, 19 hours at this point in my gameplay. Like, that's a long time to be building up this really horrible thing to happen to a character, just to have it fixed by the power of friendship? Or maybe Amy, Knuckles, and Tails take on some of the corruption? It's really hard to tell. It really just looks like one of those moments, like, you know, in Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic 06, where at this point, all the other characters would chip in and do something to help him. But you know, we're not allowed to have any other playable characters. So this statement aged poorly before the video even released. I didn't think we'd ever get extra playable characters for this game through DLC, but Sega just showed us this today on Twitter, and not only are we getting a bunch of new features over the next year, but we're also getting new playable characters, new story stuff, and it's all free. Buy Sonic Frontiers right now. So they just kind of say nice things to him, and then he goes, alright guys, I'm gonna keep going. And I just think that is such a massive waste of potential. See, the way I thought this was going is I thought they were going to show us that this little show of holding hands is not going to work because, you know, like, this is a more realistic thing. Like, this is like, we can't just be friends and then everyone just crumbles around us. I thought this was gonna happen, and then Eggman was gonna laugh at them again and be like, you guys are idiots, like, you have no idea how this works. And then it was gonna be Sage's turn to apply everything she's learned about everyone in this group to talk some sense into Dr. Eggman finally, and get Eggman to help fix Sonic. Because I think that would have been the ultimate payoff for both of these characters in this story, and instead they just sit there and watch. I guess this has the benefit for Sage to show that she's right to believe in other people, she's right to believe that odds can be overcome if you have people by your side, stuff like that. but it just doesn't feel as satisfying as it could have been, and it was really disappointing that it's been so good up to this point, and then it's like, you know, like huge nosedive. Once Sonic is back and ready to go, Eggman officially accepts the truth, thanks to Sage, so I mean, like, there is still a little bit of that in there, I appreciate that, but now this last island is all about Sonic, Sage, and Eggman working together to find the emeralds to take out the last Titan and this force that's possessing it. I think, again, it's a little bit of a missed opportunity to not have Eggman present on this island for conversations like Sonic's friends were previously. Instead, we just have a lot more conversations with Sage, which is good because now she's a lot more open to talking about everything that's happened, and you get a lot more information about the lore and backstory and stuff. But I don't know, I guess because they put all of that Eggman exposition in those egg memos you can buy in the fishing minigame, they figured he didn't need to be here for this, and then he shows up at the final hour with the last Chaos Emerald. I don't know if that feels a little rushed too, but this last island is also really fun. I think it might be one of my favorite places to play through. Again, this is a return to the previous Islands gameplay styles, thankfully, because Island 4 is a little bit of a slog after a while, aside from, like, learning all the lore and seeing all those cutscenes. Though by this point, Sonic's power stat was, like, really high for me because I'd been collecting a lot of things, which means most of the enemies and bosses, even though they're upgraded, they're just not much difficulty. That, and they sprinkle these little shoot-em-up sections in for, like, hacking minigames, I guess. You have to, like, get these computers to do certain things, and you just, like Galaga attack this core until it explodes, and you might want to remember this because it is apparently very important. Even the last Titan is a little bit of a letdown. This is Supreme. He's certainly got a really, really cool design, and I like everything that's leading up to this. I like that this Titan is currently being possessed by that, like, world-ending force that we're trying to avoid. So, of course, we have Sonic taking out the last Titan, and it's a Super Sonic boss fight, and it's really cool and extravagant and, you know, thematically appropriate for the end of the game. And just make sure you're on hard mode, because there is actually one more thing after this. On hard mode, you're allowed to get to the true final boss, and you see here Sage possesses the last Titan, Supreme, which seems to have the best characteristics of all of the Titans, and flies into space along with Super Sonic after bidding her father a very solemn farewell. And I have to give props to Mike Pollock here, because when he says, like, go do it, like, you know, letting Sage go do this, he sounds so forlorn. It really actually hurt a little bit. Now close your eyes. I want you to remember the last time that Super Sonic was next to a giant Colossus type thing for a final battle, and remember how cool that was in Sonic Unleashed? Fighting alongside a really cool character who you've come to know throughout the entire adventure, and switching back and forth between them to get the finishing blow on these eldritch horrors beyond human comprehension. But in this one, if you open your eyes, it doesn't look like that. It's just the shoot-'em-up gameplay from the minigame. I really didn't have eldritch horror beyond Sonic's comprehension on my bingo sheet for this game, because this thing is literally just the end. It is the personification of the end of all things, which makes me think I'm not sure how they're going to top that in the next game, because that's a pretty dangerous and deadly force, but also it just sits there and lore dumps at you as you listen to a really nice song, but like, oh my god, it goes on forever. And I died twice to this because I was having a little bit of trouble realizing that I could block more of the shots by shooting the same color shot. I knew you could do that, it's just when they started bunching up more, I thought I had to dodge it completely or else I was going to take damage regardless, but you actually get like a small barrier. So once you get to the later parts of this fight, you can just kind of stand in place and fire the same color that's being shot at you. But my god, I can't believe, like we went from the climax of this game and crashed down to the lowest possible denominator possible. I know we had 4 really good supersonic fights, so I really shouldn't be complaining about this, but this is the final battle against the end of all things? This looks like the credits of Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. But yeah, I guess it's worthwhile to just see the real ending of the game, where Super Sonic, after hearing this thing's bullshit spew for, 12 minutes, he just dashes right through this thing like he usually does, and then it's going to explode in, I assume, a very deadly and violent way, and Sonic looks worried even in his invulnerable state, possibly for the planet, and Sage Sage dies. Sage runs in there and like contains the blast and gets killed. And it's very sad, and I felt awful, and then Sonic comes down from the sky, goes back to his friends, and just leaves and doesn't say a goddamn thing about it, and I don't know why. Meanwhile, we get a scene of Eggman kneeling on the ground, looking up at the sky, not saying anything, just in so much pain that his daughter didn't make it back, and then we just cut to credits. Like, I thought Sonic was gonna come up and, you know, like, have a scene like at the end of SA2 where he's like, she was amazing, she did everything that you could have hoped she could and more, you know, just like, you know, that really nice character moment scene. It would have been great to have something like that between Sonic and Eggman, but they just don't do it, and Sonic and friends just leave after the first credit sequence. They just peace out. Aside from the cyber corruption, I think that is probably my biggest regret with this story. I wish there was some slight difference here. And then at the end of the second credits, we see Eggman furiously typing on a keyboard with that symbol we've been seeing pop up for the whole game. And I'm not one to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't mess with powers beyond your comprehension again this soon, but he's actually working on a way to revive Sage, when you do hear her voice at the very end, calling out for her father, and Eggman says, "That's my girl." And it's a very nice ending for the two of them. I'm glad that they at least had that, because it was kind of messed up that Sonic just didn't give a shit. I'm also really hoping this means Sage isn't going to be a one-off character. Eggman was talking before about having her integrated into the Eggnet and all of his robots going forward, so I look forward to more Sonic and Sage banter, some more Eggman and Sage wholesome moments, and Sage really needs to meet her brothers Orbot and Cubot. That's a scene that I absolutely need to see. Speaking of the credits, I guess I should mention, depending on what difficulty you're on, either, you know, normal or lower or hard, you will either get Vandalize at the end and not have the final boss, or you will have the new song by Nathan Sharp, One Way Dream, and have that really slow shoot-'em-up section. But One Way Dream is such an incredible song. Like, I had so many feels while listening to this song that once the title screen rolled back around, I literally felt tears in my eyes. Like, I was just really upset that it was over. And for comparison, the last time that seeing a title screen after a credit scroll has gotten to me that emotionally was Persona 4, like 3 or 4 years ago when I played that. And that game has a really good story. So, like, they did some things right in this one. Just what a game, dude. Like, I felt so many strong emotions playing through this whole thing, and it's easy to just say that and hope that you believe me, but I am 100% telling you the truth when I say this game was an emotional roller coaster for me. And I know it's sappy, but I really love these characters and stories, and I have for a really long time. Like, it's hard to see something you love so much being put through everything that's happened with this franchise. I don't want to get too much into this because I don't like talking about my personal life and I'm trying to make you laugh, but as a kid and well into my adulthood, I was at the mercy of a lot of medical issues. Crohn's disease is one hell of a roadblock. And I'll just say, when you're sick and you can't do anything that other kids could do, and it keeps following you your entire life, being able to play Sonic and Mario and Crash and Spyro and Pikmin and Oddworld and Mega Man, whatever, it was better than being in a hospital bed and being sad. Like, the worlds and stories and characters have gotten me through so much stuff, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you. And that's why I couldn't stand to keep playing and talking about all these games in succession where things I loved were disfigured beyond recognition. Like, this is it, guys. This is what I've been waiting for such a long time now. And there's this feeling of happiness in my heart after playing this game that has not gone away since I sat there on the title screen thinking about how much this experience affected me. My hopes for the future of this series have been renewed wholeheartedly, and that feels good. With Sonic Team saying this game was going to be the foundation they build the future of Sonic on, and with everything taking such a giant step forward, I'm really eager to revisit this as soon as possible. And that's about everything I had to say, but I wanted to end by taking a look back at some lyrics that stuck out to me while I was writing this monster of a video. This little section here from Breaking Through It All just resonated really well with the idea that this is the turning point. Hearing this almost feels like Sonic Team talking directly to Sonic and everyone who cares about him, loudly proclaiming that they are back and Sonic is not going anywhere ever again. So thank you so much for listening to all this, and I'll see you next time. Oh boy, okay, yeah, that was a really big emotional video, but I'm glad that you made it to the end, and if you did, please let me know down in the comments, because not a lot of people make it here. Now you're kind of in a secret club. And if you like this video and you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell, follow my Twitter, and join the Discord to keep up with more things Sonic and other things that aren't Sonic, because I do a lot of things. I'd also like to thank my current channel supporters, who are Brady Hilkemeyer, Mimic, Noah Wizbios, Minty, Scratch Attack 64, Danny Lee Dauber, Dax, Ty Little Tech Guy, Jeremy, Crystal, Chaos, Dork in a Hat, Mega Traffic Cone, and on Patreon we have Noah Wizbios again, and John the Real Wawaluigi. Thank you guys so much for the support, it really means a lot, and thank you also to everyone in the $1 tiers, which also helps a lot. If you'd like to become a member of the channel yourself, you can click the join button below the video, and you will get access to, I think, 23 members-only videos, and you'll get shoutouts at the end of the video. But that's it for me for this week. I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you all next time.